I'm Stephen Main. Welcome to the Main Report. Shares in Babcock and Brown this Thursday crashed by 27% to a miserable $6.90. The implosion was triggered by problems at Babcock and Brown Power, which hasn't been able to refinance its entire $3 billion debt. Shares in Babcock and Brown Power plunged by 31% to hit a record low of 90 cents, as serious questions about its solvency remains. The entire Babcock empire is now in doubt, and there's $50 billion plus of debt strewn across all the various infrastructure assets and different business operations. Institutional investors have given up on Babcock, so it now comes down to one fundamental question. Can the 20 rich blokes who control Babcock save the empire? Let's return to the recent Babcock and Brown AGM for some fascinating insights, starting with this question of staff ownership.
I'm interested as to what the current level of staff ownership is of BNB.
Executive shareholding today runs at about 40%.
But with the shares plunging, the big question is margin loans on the stock. Have a listen to this exchange.
Does the board, any of the directors, have any margin loans, or have they pledged their stock in any way to financiers?
We have a policy that requires the directors to disclose that, and what we can say is that there is absolutely no material level of, or even remotely material level of debt against any shares of any directors.
So is CEO Phil Green and his boys big enough to launch some form of rescue? Have a listen to this exchange about the dividend reinvestment plan.
Seems a fairly small amount of stock, 2.15 million. I'm just interested as to whether any of the big three executive directors with their shareholdings participated in the DRP, or did Phil and Jim make a decision that they'd rather receive some cash rather than more stock at this point in time?
I didn't and have never participated in the DRP. The reality is that I have a very, very significant amount of, in terms of my overall net worth, invested in Babcock and Brown and its satellites. And in this particular year, the bulk of my compensation has come in the form of share consideration, which I'm very comfortable with, but I don't necessarily think that my obligations as CEO extend to being compulsorily required to participate in DRP, or that represents any reflection on my view of the value of the shares. I certainly haven't sold any shares, and in fact I bought shares in August last year.
The latest BLW Rich List reckons CEO Phil Green is worth $289 million. But Babcock shares have pretty much halved since then, and with Phil taking cash rather than scrip with his dividends, I don't reckon there's a lot of capacity there, and I reckon the Babcock story is over. They are now the biggest banking workout in Australian corporate history. A whole range of sensitive infrastructure assets, which involve state and the federal governments, are now in play. Babcock is too big to fold. The banks can't send it under. But we're going to see a long and painful workout. And investors like me, in all of the Babcock vehicles, aren't going to get a very big return on their investment. I'm Stephen Main. Just keep doing your best.